cool few days.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. Whew. It's been a whirlwind.
I'm sure for you, yeah. You had a long flight in. You got a long flight back tomorrow.
Long flight in, long flight back, and
you've
then
been staying busy the whole time.
Yeah, but like you too, aren't you? You're going out of town soon too.
Yeah, so I'm taking off day after tomorrow, and then I'll be gone until the 17th.
All right.
Yeah.
So you got a trip too. So yeah, I'm home for like 5 days, and I'm in California for 6, and then I'm home for a few more days. Dude, my calendar is like.
That's the life.
As you know.
Yeah, it's.
What are you gonna do?
Trying to play catch up constantly.
That's it, brother. That's it. So I appreciate we podcasted for Shoot Me Straight.
Yep.
Right. Your podcast yesterday, we were like almost 3 hours.
Yeah, it was a good one.
It was awesome, and but it was all about me, right? You were talking, hey, tell me about yourself, right? And we're just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And I know your favorite thing to talk about is war stories and cool SEAL stories. So that's all I want. All I want is cool. No.
There I was, knee deep in hand grenades and bullet casings.
Exactly. Well, for me, obviously, we both know like you don't live on what you did in the past.
No,
it's part of who you are.
Yeah,
it's part of your experience. But you live on what you're doing now, moving forward, your current life and your nonprofit and everything that you're doing, which is awesome. And we need to reinvent ourselves, I think, as men.
Yeah, I think especially, coming from the careers that we did. I mean, I think we put everything we had into our past careers. Being 20-something years, me 20, a little over 20 years. Yep. And I think when you're done with that, it can be, shattering a little bit because that's like your identity is wrapped up in that, and it sort of has to be able to do that job.
For sure.
But yeah, I think, what I came to realize is, you get out and coming from a special operations background, SWAT, whatever, that is automatically the first thing people, read, right. Or that's what you're known.
You're Eddie Gallagher, the Navy SEAL.
So you're never going to like leave that. Right. But I also do think it's like, yes, I was a SEAL, and that's great, and I'm proud of my time there, and I'm, I don't regret one day that I wasn't doing that job. But I'm not going, like, you can't go forward in life hanging on to that because you are going to hold yourself back.
For sure.
So I think I just take some of the traits that I learned from doing that job, from the heroes that I was able to be around, the giants that I was able to be around. And as you know, you're always looking at somebody like, dude, I want to get better. I want to be like that. I take some of those traits with me and use those to push forward.
Obviously you have your mentors in the teams and whatnot in the military when, coming up as a pup or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Who do you look up to? Looking up to is not the right word. I always said, like, I don't envy or look up to any other man.
Yeah.
But I see certain traits that I appreciate and value from other men that may be further along in their career or at a higher level in their career. And it's like, okay, I want to do more of what Eddie's doing. I want to do, like podcasts. I'll tell you, I'm new to podcasting.
Yeah.
And I kind of look toward Andy Stumpf because I love his style.
He's very good at it. Yeah, he's
a savant at it.
Yeah, and that's his personality, right? Like I'm friends with Andy, and I don't think that, from what I gather, he's not faking anything. That's who he is. He's a very articulate speaker, and he's very good at interviewing, and he's good at interjecting as well, and he always has some positive things to say. Or to me, he has like common sense, right? And I've told him that. I'm like, dude, because I listen to his podcast, and I don't listen to a lot of other SEAL or like special operations podcasts because a lot of them, it's
no shit. There I was,
yeah, man, right? And I like his take on things, and just he's like, yeah, like I used to do that, but whatever, right. And I think he's good at disseminating information as well, or just being helpful to people. So, I mean, I do, like I try and take traits from him, but at the same time, I do realize that I am not him.
For sure.
It's like, I'm not trying to be him, but at the same time, I can see like, oh, dude, I like the way he does this, and right. I'm going to, try and emulate that. And I'm sure that's what you did through your whole career, right?
Yeah, I think all of us.
Yeah, I never like wanted to be like, oh, I want to be that person.
Right.
I just want to take some of the traits that person has and emulate them. And I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, and then implement them in your own style, if
Yes.
you will, or your own way.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, like I'm not an Andy Stumpf, you're not an Andy Stumpf. You run a podcast, I run a podcast now. So I think we can look at certain traits or ways he does things and go, I like that. And there are certain podcasts that I don't like so much, or I don't like the way they run it, and I don't like that, and now it kind of helps us learn. So who in your life right now are you kind of not looking up to, but who do you like see as like, I like what they're doing, I want to try to emulate that?
That's a tough one. I mean, I surround myself with people, like the people that I do work with are people that I respect, and people that they have traits that I emulate. And a lot of them are prior team guys that I worked with before. And those are guys when I was in the teams that a lot of them are my peers, right? So they're not above me or below me. We're side to side, but I still know like they're better at things than I am, at certain things. So that gives me like, I need to work on that, right? Like I need to get to their level, and it's vice versa. Some things that I do, they're like, dude, I need to implement that in my life. I work real closely with, like GBRS, for example. Like I really love the fact, I love how they run their training. It's like a day in the life. So they really focus on, the physical aspect. So every day when they run courses, you're getting a workout in the morning and then you're training hard, right? But not like too hard, right? So you're not over stressing yourself. But you are, you're pushing the envelope a little bit. And at the end of the day, everyone gets together at the end and we commune, break bread, and really just try to have a community, a type, organization, or I guess a more of a communal, aspect to it. And they still keep in touch with those people, or those people come back to the courses, so you get to know them. I like that aspect of how they run things, and I try and take certain traits from there. And a lot of it is, I think we all have very similar traits, regardless, like
positive and negative.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely positive and then there's some negative ones.
We're cookie cutters of each other, man.
We are. But I also think like that's what pushes us, right? Like I don't, because I do a lot of stuff by myself, right? I run my own business and it's just me, and I run my own training, and I'm fine with that. But there's just a different type of energy when I'm around guys like you, or guys that are driven and they're pushing forward. And like when I'm around those individuals, I feel like I better myself each and every time,
100%.
rather than me being by myself most of the time. Because it is hard to like really, if you're doing things by yourself, to push yourself and to hold yourself accountable, right? But if you have friends there, teammates, you can bounce things off of them, or be like, oh, dude, okay, that guy's getting up at 5 a.m. to go set up the range. I'm going with him and doing the work. Yeah.
And like yesterday's a perfect example. It's like we got up in the morning, nothing crazy, went over to your house, we did a workout together, and it's like, we're not competing, but there's always a little bit like, all right, I can't suck in front of Eddie.
Yeah, right.
Like I literally told myself, I didn't know what the workout was going to be. And I literally told myself driving over to your house yesterday, I was like, I cannot suck in front of Eddie.
And that was the same thing, right? But that's a good thing. That's like we are all like, okay, we're going to put out and give it our best. But to answer your question honestly, the one individual that I try and emulate, and it's my number one teammate, is my wife. She is my swim buddy, right? Like for life, and that's who I'm around 90% of the time. And there are certain traits that she has that I don't, and it's different because we're so used to being around other men, and so I see how she's a driven person, but she's driven, and the way she does her work is a way that I've never done before, and I see that it works. She's very organized, which is not my strong suit.
I'm not organized either, man.
So I'm constantly trying to work on my weaknesses through her, right? So I see how she does things, and I fail more times than not, but that is like truly who I bounce who I am off of most of the time now.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Firecracker Farm. So I'm on a primarily carnivore diet, and a massive staple of my diet is rock salt. And that's all this is, rock salt, and there's different blends, ghost peppers, reaper peppers, scorpion peppers, and it's not overpowering, it's not too spicy. Put this on my ribeye steak, heavy coat, get a nice char on it, but it just enhances the flavor of everything that you're making. Comes in a small, compact grinder. You can bring it hunting, you can bring it on your motorcycle, camping, you can bring it out to your favorite restaurant. The stuff is absolutely awesome. It's small batch, family made, family owned company, firecracker.farm. Are we boring you? Lily loves it, I love it, go check it out. Thanks guys.
That's all. Yeah. I mean, you need that, you guys are
ride or die.
We're a team.
And it's not always pleasant, and there's growing pains and all that, all that stuff.
Well, yeah, marriage isn't supposed to be easy.
No, for sure.
If it is, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, there's something wrong, and we probably wouldn't have what's the divorce rate now?
Well,
60%, 70%. I don't know what the current
in the SEAL teams,
are.
It's 120%.
Yeah,
they're counting second marriages.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
is that an actual stat?
Yeah, it's 120%. Yeah, so I mean,
wow.
That's another thing is we pride ourselves off of. She was with me the whole time in the teams, and we made it through. And I think any married couple that's in a special operations unit like that, especially during the time of the GWAT, if you made it through all that and you're married, when you get out, dude, congratulations.
Yeah,
and
big
you
time.
should be, a stronger couple for it. I'll say what I have seen though is the divorce rate is skyrocketing for guys that married couples that do make it through, and then they get out, and then a lot of them are getting divorced.
Really?
What do
you think is the cause of that?
I think it's I think there's always many factors, but I think the one is the false expectation on both sides, where I think the spouse who puts up with the job, puts up with her husband constantly being gone, being deployed. I think that a lot of times in their head, they're like, okay, once he gets out, it's going to be back to what I think
right.
the marriage should be. It's going to be back to normal, a fairy tale, whatever they have in their mind.
Right.
And the dude who's constantly deploying wants that, I think, he gets out, but at the same time, as you know, once you get out, transition is a very hard thing. And I think what happens with the spouses, they're like expecting, it's going to be all rainbows and butterflies, and now we're back together, one happy family, and that's where the real work starts, right? Because it's like, hey, dude, your husband has to be rehabilitated from doing that. And I think a lot of the spouses get frustrated, rightly so, and I'm not blaming them for it because they've put up with a lot, but I think at that point there's a lot of tension. And with the man having to trying to fix himself, and then having the spouse sort of disappointed in the way things are going, that causes a lot of turmoil, and some marriages don't make it through.
We're not always the easiest.
We are not
men to deal with.
No, we're some strong-headed, stubborn individuals, and that's where I'll also say for the guys, and I tell my buddies that are getting out now, I'm like, if there's one piece of advice I could give you, dude, it's be patient and have grace with your partner, because you are about to go through a roller coaster of getting out. And, a lot of guys, well, I'm good. And I'm like,
no, homie,
brother,
you ain't. Wait.
Yeah, and I think that is the right answer, is letting people know, like, hey, dude, you're about to go through a whole nother selection process. So you need to go into that selection process with the same mentality that you went into whatever selection process got you to this job in the first place.
The one thing I know that I struggled with, that I think I'd add, patience is huge, and empathy.
Yeah.
Because I think guys like us, we lack.
Oh, big time.
We lack that. Mm-hmm. And then also when we get kind of pushed against the wall or challenged, and maybe not challenge is the right word, but I think we can lose sight of any empathy, even for loved ones.
Yes.
And we just go internal and go high order, fuck this, blah, blah,
anger.
Blah. Anger, right?
Because that's the one emotion that we're allowed to have in our past jobs.
Yeah.
Is, and I was emotionally, what's the word?
Unavailable?
Not unavailable, just emotionally, I guess, incompetent.
Yeah. Your EQ?
My emotional EQ was like 0.1, right? Where I would have a feeling, whether it was I'm sad, disappointed, whatever, name the feeling, but all that just comes out in anger.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm feeling sad. I can't feel this way. Now I'm going to be angry about it.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that I had to work on. And that's where I tell, guys too, it's like, dude, you need to really work on yourself to sort of adjust and become a functioning part of either your marriage or society.
Right.
You know what I mean? We can't just go through life after we get out of the job still with the same mentality, like,
No.
like I'm gonna muscle through everything. It's like you
This ain't the teams, homie.
yeah,
This
it's
ain't
gonna
like
be a rough mountain to climb.
yeah,
if you're gonna do that.
mama's worse than dealing with Master Chief or whoever.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, how many podcasts have you done where you've talked about your situation with the Navy and all that
A
stuff?
lot. I mean,
right?
countless, right?
Yeah,
It's-
and I don't even want to get into that, dude. Like
Yeah,
you've
it's-
beaten that. Hey, if you want to learn about Eddie, if you don't know who Eddie is, and you go watch another podcast where he's talked about all the shit he's been through and
I will
everything he's
direct
done.
you to the best one I did is go to the Sean Ryan episode I did with
Yeah,
him.
there you
that
go.
explains everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to get into that, dude, because again, that's a part of your life.
It
It's
happened.
giving you certain experiences, but you're moving on. So, how long have you been out?
I got out in December of 2019.
Okay, so I
So-
mean, still pretty
Pretty
fresh.
fresh,
And
yeah.
you did 20-something years.
Little
You said
over
you went
20.
in 96?
99.
99. So still pretty fresh.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious for you, and if there's anything that I bring up that you don't want to talk about, just
No, bro. I'm
fuck
I'm
off, dude.
open book, dude.
How are you doing still with your transition? You think, let me maybe rephrase that a little bit. Are you totally happy and comfortable with who you are now and what you're doing now?
Yes, I can say I would go ahead and say, like, within the last year, I started feeling like everything's on the right track. That I love what I'm doing. I have more of a better understanding of what I'm doing now. I think the first 3 to 4 years, I mean, it's a lot of just confusion, chaos, and just trying to, like, where do I fit in, right?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? What is my purpose? And that's fine. It's like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it can be frustrating. But I feel like, the one thing is you don't give up, right? You as frustrating as things can be, you keep pushing forward.
Don't
and there's
quit.
going to be you don't quit. And there's going to be a lot of letdowns, setbacks, but there's also going to be a lot of high highs. And eventually what happened with me is I just think, eventually I got everything narrowed down to, like, this is what I want and this is how I want to move forward, and these are the people I surround myself with. And I think I was just, actually Andrea not long ago was like, dude, everything, like, it's going good. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel good. And mentally I'm there. But I will say this, I don't think it doesn't end. I still have moments where, I have certain feelings like anxiety or, certain things come up where I might find myself getting frustrated. And really, like, what gets me through all of that is just I really focus a lot of my attention to my faith. And, like, I read my Bible every morning. I ask him for the wisdom to get through the day. I ask him to take away any of those, symptoms that we have from our job, like, and it helps. And it doesn't mean everything's smooth and easy. It's just, it gives me the strength to, like, push past all that.
I think it's constantly a work in progress. I don't think we're ever over that.
No.
It's like I'll be doing great, and then it'll be an anniversary of a buddy of mine who got killed or whatever, or an anniversary of something that's every feed on every social media platform is just showing,
Yes.
flag draped coffins or whatnot. Like, and I think it's human nature. I think it's natural for us to kind of.
Well, it's a trauma that's, in all of us, and that's what it is. It's trauma that you have to deal with. What I find is, like, because I have the same thing. Like, there's certain anniversary dates, and then you're dealing with the suicide epidemic. So now you're losing buddies, and there's anniversary dates of that. I know I have a hard time, but you have to become self-aware and realize, like, okay, I know this is coming up, like the anniversary of extortion or one of my other buddies' deaths. I'm like, okay, this is coming up. I really need to try and process this better and it's work. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. Like, I don't do well on holidays. There's something in me. Thanksgiving, Christmas,
You and me both.
everything spikes, right? Yep. And my wife knows it. My kids know it, and it's not a good thing because they feel like they have to sort of walk around on eggshells a little bit around me, which that's the last thing you want as a father, is to have your family walking around on eggshells, just because you're triggered by certain things. And yes, the holidays for some reason is like, I don't know what it is. I just get this feeling of like, it's almost like not darkness, but just like, I don't like this, right? I don't like this forced, you have to be happy and joyful and all this, when there's a lot tied to those holidays for me. And I think it's just, being deployed on those times.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. But I've told my wife this just this past Christmas, because I was doing good, and then Christmas Day I was like this. I'm not having a good time, and and it showed. And so I made a promise to them. I'm like, that is one thing this next year that I am going to work on. I'm going to try and process that so this does not happen, the next Christmas. Like, and that's all I can do as a father is like, and first admitting like, no, I'm not okay. Right. This does bother me, and I do have problems with this, but I am going to work on it. Yeah. Not just for you guys, but for myself as well.
I think that's the first part. So I'm the same way. I don't do well on holidays. I can be great. The next day is Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. For me personally, I think for whatever reason, and again, you're deployed, I was gone, not as long as you, but for 8 years of my life, I was pretty much gone on most holidays.
Yeah, you're by yourself.
I was deployed. And I know for me, holidays, I feel undeserving of it. That's when my survivor's remorse, survivor's guilt kicks in more than any other time. Mm-hmm. And I feel undeserving of being there for that holiday with loved ones, having a grand old time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I should be miserable, which means everybody else around me is going to be miserable.
Which is the unfortunate
byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Is the first, I think the first thing is being able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because that's, like I've never talked about it until really just a few years ago, just a couple of years ago, kind of, like really just the last like maybe 3 years is when I can be like, hey, look, I know tomorrow's Christmas and I'm already feeling the anxiety of it, and so it's like, I'm going to do my best, but I need you to work with me a little bit here.
Yeah. Understand that this is a hard time for me. And that's, and that's what I told, my family too. They know, like they know I'm giving it my best, and then sometimes my best isn't good enough, and it's like, okay, well, I have to go for a walk for 2 hours, and I just will leave, and that they know that, and they're like, okay, let him have his time. Hopefully, hopefully everything straightens out, because it has nothing to do with anybody that's around me. No. It's all internal to me. So it's like I have to work on me. Yeah. And I also think it's important is letting your family know, because they're going to see it regardless, that there are repercussions to our job. And that's just the bottom line. It's like, I put myself in those positions. I volunteered to go do those things, but they come with repercussions, and I have to deal with those to make myself a better husband and father.
Yeah. Do you see a shrink? Do you have a shrink?
No. I talked to Dr. Chris Free. I've actually had him on the podcast. When I first got out, a good friend of mine, Dan Luna, had connected me with him, and this guy is a saint, dude. He takes it like out of his own time, would talk to me once a week, and at first I was freaking not about it, but I was like, I'm going to do this just because this is what my wife wants me to do. And eventually he was able to we were able to get a good relationship going where I trusted him. And it helps, man. It's like just unloading some things, and actually, telling somebody else like, dude, this is what I'm going through, and knowing like, hey, that person, there's no judgment there. He's just like, Yep. Yeah. And he talks to so many special operators and dudes in law enforcement. Yeah. And he's the same. He's like, brother, you are not the only one. Like, this is
bro, we're
so common.
We're cookie cutters of one another.
Yeah.
We really are. We all think we're different or special, and there ain't nothing different or special about any of us, really.
No.
You know? And it's the same. My shrink is a rock star. Like, same thing. And the first time I went to go see him, I was kind of forced that way.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck this guy, and if he says anything about pills or medicine, I'm going to punch him in the mouth, and I'm not, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like the coolest dude ever. We didn't even talk about it. We just got to know each other.
Yep.
I was like, I kind of want to go back and talk to him again.
And that's, yeah. And that's, I mean, I think for a lot of us, that's what happens, right? Is if we're forced into a situation where it's like, hey, you need to talk, I'm like, I'm not going to.
Right.
Because a lot of us are authority defiant.
Yeah.
And we're like, you're telling me I have to do this? Well, I'm not going to fucking do
right.
it. But once you are able to establish that trust and you're like, okay, this guy, you know, he means well and he has my best intentions. And then you can start really getting that flow of communication going. And yeah, it has helped me out, I think, more. You know, there's a lot of things that I've done to push myself forward and to get better. But that's been a huge factor, is just having that open line of communication with him. And I will say this, like, now I don't talk to him as much, but we stay in comms, and then every once in a while, take last Christmas, for example, I left the house, I drove down the street, and I called him. And I was like, dude, I'm not doing good. Yeah. Like, this is what's going on. And he talked to me for a good 30 to 45 minutes. And guess what? I went home, apologized, and was like, hey, I'm going to try and do better. And that's what we need sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And it's exactly, Doc Mark, my guy, is exactly the same way. And I'll never forget the day I go in, and this is like maybe our third or fourth session, so still fairly new. And, you know, I think guys like us, too, like, well, what am I going to talk to this nerd doctor about? He doesn't know me. Yeah. He hasn't been through
where I've been.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, it's all that macho chest being bullshit. And we're sitting down. He's like, man, I'm thinking about getting a gun. And my brother-in-law, he's a dentist, but he shoots. He goes to the range. And he was going to take me into the range and show me some stuff on how to shoot. And he's like, do you have any suggestions or what do you think about that? I was like, Doc, I think that's a fucking horrible idea. I was like, he's a dentist. I was like, go find a professional, like, firearms instructor who's carried a gun for a living, who's a subject matter expert, and let them teach you. He goes, that's what I thought you would say. He goes, look, Greg, I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what you've done. I don't know what you've seen. But you know what I know? He goes, I'm a fucking subject matter expert in the brain.
Yep.
And I was like, ding, all right, hit the believe button. Yeah. Roger that, like, he's a specialist. We've been talking about specialists the last few days. He's a specialist in the brain.
Yeah, and that's who you need. You need someone like that because chances are if you're talking to somebody that's been there and done that, just like we have, they're probably not the best person to give you the help that you need.
Probably
they might be
not.
Like, yeah, man, I have. It'd be like me and you going back and forth. Like, yeah, I experienced that too. Yeah. Me too. I feel that way too. Yeah. Me too. But there's no solutions being presented. Right. It's just we're griping to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're just going back and forth. He said one thing to me one day that just sticks with me forever, and I use it in a lot of speaking events and when I'm talking to guys. And he said, without being vulnerable, without vulnerability, there's no growth. No. You can't grow without being vulnerable. And we can use that in every walk of life. So whether it's our emotions, our EQ, right, and we're in that mood with our families or wives or whatever, and we're going to internalize it, and we're going to get angry, we're going to go for a walk, we're going to leave, we're going to do this, rather than saying, babe, kids, I'm sorry, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And now we're being vulnerable because we're getting that insecurity out.
Yeah.
But that's how you grow. It's the same thing, like walking into a jiu-jitsu academy for the first time. You're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
But you're not going to grow as a human.
There is no growth without suffering. And being vulnerable for a lot of us is suffering. Yeah. It's sufferable.
Yeah, for sure.
For me to, and it's not, I'm getting better at it. And I've come like lengths and strides from where I was. But I still have that, thought. And it's just, I think it's from the way we were raised too, is if I let this person know, like, hey, I'm not feeling good, or I'm waiting for, like, stop being a bitch.
Yeah, yeah,
and you're like,
yeah. It's a sign of weakness.
Like, and right. And that's always like the expectation. I'm like, dude, if I say this, Like there's a chance.
Yeah.
That,
Is that carbon? You just wipe
Did I
carbon
just
on.
wipe carbon
You just
on
wipe carbon all
shit.
over your.
That's-
We just got off the range,
Yeah.
folks. We did wash our hands,
I
but
tried
he's
my
still
best to wash my
he's
hands,
still
yeah.
got some carbon on his fingers. You're good now.
Okay, cool.
No, but you're right, and it's we always in our society it was taken as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a sign of weakness, honestly, until I was 40.
Yeah.
I thought it was a sign of weakness until I was 40. And I've just gotten to the point where it's like, I know what I am. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know we can sit here and talk about our feelings, emotions, cry. I can tell people I love them, hug, be emotionally available, be vulnerable, be loving and caring. But if a bad guy comes to this door right now, you and me are going to flip the switch, turn it on, go deal some death and deal business.
Yeah.
And then we can come back. It's like, it doesn't change who we are.
No, not at all. And I think that's also the misconception is like, oh, if I start letting myself be vulnerable, I'm going to become soft. And it's like, dude, actually you are going to be a lot stronger than you are.
And that's what you realize.
God's to honest truth.
Yes.
Like the second you start letting some of those emotions out and feelings and like actually talking about them, and you, at first surround yourself with good people, right? And like to go back to what I said, like if you start opening up and being vulnerable and you maybe have an old teammate there, and he's like, bro, you sound like a bitch right now. It's like, well, maybe that's not the person that you should be hanging around, right? Because they're refusing to grow and guaranteed they're having the same issues you are.
100%.
Right? Except they're just masking them in whatever ways through pills, bottle, this and that. So you need to have you be surrounded by good individuals that want your best intentions, right? And then also, just like we talked about, is once you start being vulnerable and talking about your emotions, it's hard, dude. Like it's almost like
nearly impossible sometimes.
It's so hard to get out, but once you start getting it out, it becomes easier, and you will find that, dude, I feel first 10 times lighter. And now I can be more agile in the things that I do.
That's right.
Right. But before, when I didn't do that, it's like I'm just weighed down by everything that I've shoved down, either, thrown in your rucksack or just shoved down. And it's like, dude, it's going to seep out in ways that you don't want it to.
It's going to explode sometimes.
Yeah.
Andy talks about that. He's like, it's a rucksack, and you're just stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it. And he's like, if you don't take stuff out of there in a healthy way, boom, it's gonna come to capacity at some point.
Yeah,
that's why I ended up going to see a shrink. That happened to me. It like fucking exploded one night in a bad way. Yeah,
multiple nights from I've had multiple occasions where it's like, dude, where did that come from?
Yeah. It's one of those things, and I think it does take some maturity. Like my goal now, what I try to do is I try to impart this knowledge, what we're talking about right now, to guys younger than when I started to make the transition, because I wish I had someone like one of us talking to me when I was 30, and maybe I wouldn't have received it.
That's what I asked.
Maybe I wouldn't have received it, but at the same time, I looked up at 30 years old. I looked up to the guys that I worked for that had the gray in their beards, that were 10, 15 years older than me. And they were like gods of men. Yeah. And I think had they sat down and had that discussion, I don't know, maybe it would have resonated. Maybe I would have called them a pussy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, you can look back, at my 30-year-old self or, 25-year-old self and young, dumb, just full of piss and vinegar. And they're like, dude, nobody can tell me anything. I'm cocky, in some forms. Like I'm indestructible, which is what we all think. But I do think, like the more, especially now with the amount of experience that has, gone through, especially through the GWAT and then even in law enforcement, I all the experience older guys have, I do think it would be pertinent if a guy that is like a legit, law enforcement officer or legit special operator that everybody respects, if he, while he's active duty, he's like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take the time to talk to these younger guys and have like an open forum discussion where it's like nothing's, off the table. Like, let's just talk about the reality of what happens when you do this job for a long time, and being like him being vulnerable, be like, this is what I go through. This is, yes, I'm alcoholic or I'm this, and I'm trying to work on myself. That I think that would resonate with younger guys a lot more.
I agree. I think, like you said, it's got to come from that one mountain of a man.
Yeah.
It's got to come from that man that everyone in the team or whatever looks up to and go, Eddie's a fucking savage. He's a badass. And he's telling us this. So we probably need to listen.
Yeah.
You know, because we know he's not a pussy. We know he's not weak. We know he's not this. We know he's not that. And he's telling us this. So we probably need to listen. You know, I think it would help a lot of, if you can start unpacking that rucksack a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Then I think you won't have guys going down the road of drugs, massive amounts of alcohol, pills, suicide,
Yep.
etc. as much, you know?
I think so. You know, and I think it's going to be, I mean, I'm probably the same with you, like coming up in my 20-year career. The guys that I looked up to were freaking badasses, like dudes that had multiple deployments, you know, guys, they were just skilled operators, guys that you wanted to learn from, but you only knew them from their work environment.
That's right.
If you had taken a look, let me see at his family life, and it's usually fucking shattered, right? And you're like, holy shit.
Right.
And I think you don't realize that until you start making rank yourself and sort of like getting up to a position of leadership, and then you're sort of looking around and being like, dang, dude, like that dude's life, his family life is torn apart.
Yeah.
But he can come into work every day and be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
I think you like you said, you see that, you look up to them and emulate them as a war fighter,
Yes.
as whatever you want to call it, an operator, blah, 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 whatever you call it, right? But then maybe it's when you learn about the actual man.
Yeah. He's on his
It's
third
like,
marriage.
maybe that's not the guy I want to emulate and be like, but again, you kind of pick and choose
Exactly, and that's what you can do. Like we talked about earlier, you take certain traits from individuals, like I like that, and that individual could have traits that you don't like, but also traits that you're like, dude, I want that.
Right.
So you just, I'm going to go ahead and work on that, and then I'm going to see the traits that he doesn't like, and I'm going to also work on I don't end up like that.
Right, yeah, not being that way. This episode is brought to you by Ammo Squared. Do you guys remember the great ammo shortage of 2020? I sure do. Well, there's this company in Idaho making sure that never happens again, and it's called Ammo Squared. They've been helping over 80,000 members stockpile ammo automatically since 2015. And here's how it works. You sign up, you pick your ammo from over 70 different calibers, you set an auto buy budget, and you choose a shipping trigger. Basically, over time, your ammo accumulates based on your budget, and it's stored for free in Ammo Squared's climate-controlled warehouse until you're ready for it to ship. There's no minimums, there's no extra fees. It's perfect for small budgets or anyone who wants to build up a stockpile without spending thousands or hundreds of dollars right away up front. It's the easiest way to stay prepared without the hassle. Head to ammosquared.com and take the work out of buying ammo. 80,000 members, guys, and thousands of 5-star ratings, and they can't be wrong. That's Ammo Squared. Check them out today. Plant medicine. What are your thoughts? Have you experimented with plant medicine? Have
Yes.
you done any of the journeys?
I did Ibogaine and the 5-MeO DMT. Probably I think I was like a year out, and I'm an advocate for them. I think so. I'm like a pros and cons. I think the plant medicine is good if you go into it with the right intentions and you have the right individuals actually performing that. I went through Vets, which is owned by Amber and Marcus Capone.
Yep.
I worked with Marcus for a little bit, and that is done very professionally. They assign you a counselor a month ahead of time. They won't tell you really what the journey is going to be like or what's going to happen, but they give you some things to sort of prep for it. And then they want you to hey, cut a lot of stuff out of your diet,
Right.
cut alcohol out, or all this stuff. And some guys do and some guys don't. I did. I took it very seriously, and then I had a awesome experience.
Yeah.
It was mainly, and what's crazy is I think when you go, that people are like, oh, you're going to be seeing all sorts of stuff from everything you've done. It had nothing to do with my job career at all. I didn't have one iota from that, or like the stuff that happened to me at the end of my career, which I thought the people that were there thought I was going to like freak out because of that. It was all childhood. It was all like, dude, this is why you are the way you are.
Yeah.
And here's some things that you can work on, like you can change, or that generational trauma, right? And I came out of it having a better understanding of who I was as a person, and then I was able also to forgive, for some things that I still had locked up in my mind that I didn't know that were there. That drug showed me everything. But I will say this: there's a con to it, and I think it's not talked about. I think, like I said, I'm an advocate for it if it's done correctly, but from my experience, I came back from it, and you are still glowing or high off that drug for a couple months afterwards. It's still inside you, right? What I experienced was a complete crash. Once that drug wears off, it's like reality's hitting you back in the face because it is a drug at the end of the day.
Right.
And what I see a lot of guys doing is they just keep going back and doing it. And I'm like, dude, that's not the answer. I think that if the drug shows you like, hey, dude, this is how you should feel and this is how you can be, then it's on you to continue that work without having to go back and do psychedelics all the time. Right. I have nothing. Then I don't think there's anything wrong with doing psychedelics occasionally. If you're like, hey, dude, I'm gonna just do some and chill out. Yeah. If that's what helps you, great. But if you, as soon as you start making it a part of who you are, and like, oh, now I'm this, and I see a lot of like, dude, I see a lot of these special operators who were like,
I'm waiting because I think I know what you're gonna say.
These dudes where I like, bro, you were a killer, which is great, but now they're like this, oh, everything is lovely and oh, everybody love each other, and I'm like, dude, that's not reality either, bro. Like, you're not living in reality. And I think maybe they want to stay that way just because it's comfortable, but I don't think it's good. I think that you need to have your wits about you and also understand, no, the world is not all rainbows and butterflies, and not everybody loves you. You need to.
And you don't love everybody, let's be honest.
No, I don't. It's like, sorry, man, I'm not going to, I'm not going to jive with that hippie stuff. But, I would just say if people are going to go do that drug, be intentional about it. Have some things that you want to get out of it, but just know it's not the end all be all. Yeah. It's not the ultimate game changer that everybody says it is.
Did that, so I know your youngest son is 15.
Yep.
Right? After, because you had said something about your journey and that it was really childhood-based stuff, and it resonates with me, and it's something I'm trying to do with my kids differently. Did it change the way you parent? Did it change your outlook for your kids?
Yes, for sure. It's because what it showed me is, I had a lot of, I guess, pent up, anger or whatever you want to call it from the way my dad raised me, right? And I'll say this right now, my dad is the best human being. He's my hero. I've always looked up to him. But he had an anger problem. Everything was, there was a lot of yelling, and it was just a lot. We moved around. I was an Army brat, so there was just a lot of stuff that went on that and the big thing was nothing was talked about. Right. So like there'd be blow-ups, and then it was sort of like, and keep pushing forward, right? So that's the way I was raised, and I didn't think anything was wrong with it until I married my wife, and she's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Yeah. And I'm like, what? Because if I had a blow up or angry, I'd be like, oh, okay, that happened, move on. And she's like, nope, we need to talk about it. And I'm like, talk about it? Yeah. I'm like, we don't do that. And so there was a lot of that. And so what it helped me realize is, because what the drug showed me, without going into full detail, is I got to watch him grow up. It literally was
your
vision.
Dad.
Yes, I got to see him as a child, and they were like legit memories of the way he was treated growing up, and it was 1,000 times worse. So it just made me realize, like, this dude was just doing his best, right? And he loved me, and there was, did he do everything correctly? Heck no. Do I do everything correctly? Heck no. But what I can do is try and break that generational trauma of like anger, yelling, volatility, and not have my kids have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Now, have I done that 100% perfect? No, but they know that I am working on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really with the beauty of it is like, I'm not doing everything perfect, but I'm working on it. At least my kids at a very young age now can be like, you know what? I'm going to work on that too. And they have been. And so hopefully that generational trauma will end, with them or maybe with one of their kids.
Yeah. I think, it's similar to my old man grew up in the Russian Yiddish slums of Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And like multiple generations of family all living in one little apartment. His dad left and had a second family that nobody knew about in another state and was like all over the place, involved with the mob and all this stuff. Like, he grew up hard. My old man grew up hard. And, I had a great life. I really did.
Same.
But he was very stoic. And I think it's also a generational thing too, is like,
yes,
our men our dad's age, they didn't talk about feelings. They didn't tell us they loved us.
No. Nope.
And like, here we are, they didn't tell me he loved me, all that stuff. But it's like, for me, it built who I was as a child, which I would kind of assume it was similar with you. And it's what led us to go the routes we did.
Yes.
But I was very serious as a kid. I didn't goof around. I didn't smile. I didn't have a lot of fun. I had to accomplish things as a kid. So even it was like racing a BMX bike or whatever, I was there not to have fun and race. I was there to win.
Yeah.
I was there to win, you know? And I took myself way too seriously as a kid. And it didn't ruin my childhood, but I look back and one of my biggest regrets is like, I told this to a young kid that I was trained in jiu-jitsu with. He's 16. I spent a whole weekend with him at one of our Guns and Geese events. And I said, dude, I want you to smile more. You should be having fun. You're at this weekend with all these awesome people.
Yeah.
All these mentors. Look at the grown men. Look at the black belts that you kind of look up to, and look how much fun we're having. We're smiling. We're hugging each other. We're laughing. We're joking around. We don't take ourselves seriously. And I was like, when I was your age, I was just like you. And it's my biggest regret as a kid, was that I wish I smiled more. I wish I had more fun.
Yeah.
And so I really try to impart that on my kids, is that I'm not very serious with them. We joke around a lot. I'm not super hard on them when it comes to jiu-jitsu and sports and stuff like that.
Yep.
They get the push when they need it, but,
And that's where, dude, so I'll ask you this. So your son is
13.
13, right? So, okay, our kids are pretty close to the same age. I find it hard as a father now. Like, I guess, yeah, I do. I find it difficult at times to find that fine line between pushing my kid and then also letting them be a kid, right? And I think there is times to interject as a father.
Sure.
It's like, hey, dude, for me, it's like if you sign up for something and you're doing it and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, no. You made a commitment to a team. You finish out your commitment, and if you don't want to do it after that, fine.
Yep.
But we don't quit in
Same
this
here.
family.
Same
and,
here.
That comes with its, trials and tribulations of like going back and forth and having to have those hard talks. But I do think that is needed in a father or a masculine figure. Is like you do need to push your kids at some point, man, and be like, dude, okay, I'm no longer I'm your father,
right?
And I know like what's best for you in some areas.
Yeah.
In some areas I don't,
right?
But I know for a fact in this one, you are not going to quit. You are going to finish this out. And those are hard talks you have to have sometimes because your kids want what they want.
Of course.
But at the other end of that, I also am like, I want you to enjoy yourself, right? So it's always, finding that fine line.
Yeah. But you're also building those principles and ethics into your kids.
Yes.
By doing that. Otherwise, you have half these kids that we see running around nowadays with no work ethic and no moral or ethical compass, and it's like, and that's what you're left with if you don't push your kids.
And that's my fear is like I don't want my kids to end up like some of these kids who are just like, oh, I need my feelings are all that matters, and like I need things handed to me and blah blah blah, and it's like, dude, that's not the way life works.
I get questions from parents all the time. Little Timmy doesn't want to do jiu-jitsu anymore. He doesn't want to come to training. What should I tell him? I'm like, Tell him he has to. Like, you bring him.
Yeah.
You bring him. Well, I don't want to push him and force him. I said, let me ask you something. I said, does he play baseball or soccer? Oh, yeah. I said, okay. Is him learning how to play baseball going to potentially save his life one day? No. Okay. Does he always want to brush his teeth every morning and night? No, of course he doesn't. But do you make him? Yeah. And when he's, 18, 20, 25, 30, and he doesn't have rotten gums and rotten teeth, he's not going to resent you for making him brush his teeth every day.
Yeah.
Does he want to go to school every morning? Well, no, of course not. But you make him, right? Well, he's not going to resent you when he's 18, 20, 25, 30, and he has an education and a job and he can navigate through life. It's like, for me, it's kind of the same thing with self-defense, martial arts, jiu-jitsu. It was like, they've got to do something productive. And I'm using jiu-jitsu because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me, that's not a it's not a okay, maybe. It's like, yeah, no, you're going to do this. And here's why.
Yeah.
And you get that push. Now, do you want to compete? Okay, cool. That's up to you. I'm not going to force you to compete. Do you want to train 5-6 days a week? I'm not going to make you train every single day. But it's like, you're going to brush your teeth. You're going to go to school. You're going to learn how to defend yourself,
Yeah.
And you're going to build some resilience.
The way, so you put on that seminar last night, right?
Yeah.
Which was awesome at Coastal. And I told my youngest, he was there. And I'm like, hey, dude, he got off school. I was like, you're going. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, we're going. And I already had told him, I was like, dude, because wrestling season was over.
Wait, was that your son?
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't even know that.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
no.
that was my youngest. Yeah.
Oh,
I was there.
Man.
I thought my bad, dude.
I didn't
thought
know
I had
that.
Introduced you to him.
No, I walked through the mat and I introduced myself to him, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm bummed. I wish I knew that was your son. I would have rolled with him too.
He did phenomenal last night too. He was like, went 2 or 3 rolls with some dudes, and I was watching him, and I mean, he with his wrestling background, I mean, he was doing great. And here's the thing: he just finished wrestling, so he's like, I'm on a break, and okay, man, but. What I told him, because I was like, hey, dude, you're going. And he was like, oh, like bitching. And I started feeling myself getting like, all right, dude. But I walked out, and I was like, you know what? I walked back in. I was like, hey, dude, I want you to go because this is a bonding time between you and I. I want you to go with me. And it's like, we don't get to spend like all the hours of the time together. And I'm like, it's special to me if you go with me. And that he got up and he was like, okay. Then
that was you being vulnerable with him. And he
that
recognized
vulnerability
that.
works.
Yeah.
And it is like the absolute truth. It's like, do I want you to do jiu-jitsu? Yes. Do I think it's beneficial for you? Yes. But what's more beneficial is like the time that we get to spend together and grow together in jiu-jitsu arena. And he, once I told him that got him, he's like, all right, I want to go.
Yeah.
And guess what? When we left,
did he have fun?
Bro, we left, and he was a little, worn out a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
But he was like, man, I was like, but are you glad you went? And he's like, yes, I feel a lot better.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I'm glad. Man, I'm bummed that I didn't even realize that was your son. I thought,
oh, dude, that was
because
my
I think
bad.
he was he on the mat before you got on the mat? I think he was dressed out on the mat before you got on the mat.
Yeah, he was.
And so I walked around. And I said hi to everybody, but you hadn't come on the mat yet.
Yeah, he was.
And then
down
I
at
saw
the
you
other
drilling.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then me and him drilled together and did everything.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. I would have rolled with him.
Well,
next time
we're
I'll be
definitely gonna
back.
get together. Yeah, or we're coming out to where you're at.
Oh, that'd be
for sure.
awesome, man. That'd be awesome. So I haven't done the ibogaine 5-MeO DMT ayahuasca stuff, and I'll be honest with you, I've been invited or had a couple opportunities that I guess I could have jumped on. It scares the shit out of me.
It should.
It does.
I believe me, I was nervous, and I'll say this: like, I grew up a little rebel. I mean, when I was in high school, I did acid, mushrooms.
You and me both.
Yeah,
I
did it all, right?
Yep.
And then obviously joined the military, and didn't do any of that crap. So when I was going to do it again, I was nervous, and it's the strongest psychedelic you can do.
Yeah.
And I will say it is not a good time. If you're thinking, if people are thinking like, oh, it's like mushrooms or taking psilocybin. No, dude, it's so intense, and it will try and like scare you.
Yeah.
But there's, like we talked about, there's no growth without suffering, and I think that's what that medicine does. It makes you suffer a little bit. You breathe through it, get through it, and then it'll show you like, aha. Yeah. Here's everything. Here's why you are the way you are. Here's why things are bothering you. But I am also, and I realize that it's being pushed on a lot of people, right? It's, especially guys from our backgrounds are like, oh, go do this, go do this. Go do it if you feel that it's right for you.
Right.
Even when I went and did it, I had a discussion with my wife about it, and I was like, I'm thinking about doing this, and she had her apprehensions, and we prayed about it, and she talked to other wives that their husbands had done it just to get some kind of information, and we both finally were like, all right, this is what I'm doing, and that became my new focus. It was like, this is my next step to getting better, and I took it seriously. But at the end of the day, I would say to people, if you were thinking about doing it, don't go in there with the attitude, I'm just going to take it and figure it out.
Yeah.
Because then you're wasting your time.
Be intentional about it.
Yeah, be intentional. It will show you what you need.
What I've heard from buddies of mine is the ones that handled it like you, like, okay, this is my next mission, and I need to prep for it, and I need to be ready for it, right? And I need to take it seriously, have had good experiences.
Yes.
And the guys that didn't detox or didn't stop doing this or didn't just like, I'm not reading that, fuck it, I'm just going on this thing.
Yeah,
that
typical
day.
team guy, figure it out. I'll figure it out on the fly.
And they have bad experiences.
Oh, yeah,
you know? And also what I've heard too, is that if you're comfortable with the decisions you've made in life, comfortable with the decisions you've made in warfare, then you're at peace with that and you'll be fine. If you've done things that you haven't reconciled with or that you think is wrong, that will amplify it. That's what I've heard.
I think so too. Yeah. There was guys that I was in there with that had those issues. And I thought that's what I was going to have issues with.
Yeah.
It was more, I thought my issue was going to be because I don't have issues with what I've done. Right. And it's like, I don't feel bad about the people that I've killed overseas and the things that have gone. And so in my mind, I'm like, no, there's something wrong with me, because I think society, especially, I can only speak from my example, because of what I went through at the end of my career, and I was being persecuted. Like, oh, look at this guy's a warmonger, and he's, just wants to go overseas and kill bad guys, and that's wrong. And you're like, well, is it? Like, and that's what I was having confusion. I'm like,
questioning yourself.
Yeah, like I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
Right.
So I thought I was going to go in there and have all these issues with the things I've done, and I didn't. None of that came up.
Well, if you're at peace with it, I don't. I was actually, it's funny because I told you I sat at the bar last night at that restaurant and just had a steak and had one drink, and I used to drink a lot like most of us guys. I used to drink a ton, and I don't really drink anymore, and I'll have one socially. And I started having a conversation with a couple next to me. We just started chatting. And, like, I'm not bothered by anyone that I've ever pulled a trigger on or hurt. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't lose an ounce of sleep on it because they all deserved it. They're all bad guys, bad people. Right. The stuff that bothers me the most, I would say, is like their whole survivor's guilt, survivor's remorse thing, or what you see happen to women, children, innocents in these situations, and that's what
the pure
messes me
evil
up.
that you see.
Yeah, the pure evil that you see. And that's what messes me up the most. And, some of the stuff that I've dealt with kids, honestly, mostly from law enforcement.
Oh, I bet.
Messes me up more than anything.
Oh, dude, what you guys see on a daily basis, I'll say it, like, there are certain things I saw overseas that I don't think it was just pure evil, right? And I don't think I hope nothing can like top what I saw, because I was like, dude, this is as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
But those are like sporadic, right? So we deploy for 6 months, come back, we rest and refit for a year, go deploy again. You guys are on the grind every day.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're seeing it in your homeland. Like it's a little bit different when you're like, these are fellow Americans acting like this. And you see the evil that they can commit. And I can't imagine, the effects that has on you having to deal with that.
And you go home from shift and you shower and change and you go to sleep and you get up and do it again. Man. Yeah, like you said, like, I remember being in grocery stores getting groceries, and I'd run into, someone that I had just put in jail, or someone that I had just responded to save, or whatever it may have been, and it's like, oh, This is like right here in my backyard.
Awkward.
Yeah, exactly. Check, please,
Yeah.
sort of thing. What I've been doing lately, and I don't know if you've messed with this at all, and I did it because a trusted buddy of mine, we talked about it, is I've been microdosing psilocybin.
Yep.
True microdosing. I'm not high. I'm not hallucinating. I'm not seeing any of that stuff. And it has been one of the most beneficial things that I've experienced in the past several years.
Yeah,
It's
so
amazing.
I'll do that as well.
Yeah.
And what I think people have a misconception of what microdosing is as well, because they think
sure.
like, oh, you're taking psilocybin.
Right.
And you're,
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's such a tiny, tiny amount. All it really does for me is enhances my mood a little bit. Or like, it's like, okay, if I'm feeling, and I'll do it when I know, like when I wake up and I already know I'm like, dude, I am in a negative mood, bro. And there's
Called war mode.
Yeah.
I wake up, I'm in war mode.
Yeah. And I'm self-aware now to be like, dude, I already know I'm in a negative mood. And sometimes, like I said, the first thing I do is talk to God, and I'm like, hey, I'm feeling this way. Like, please help me out of this. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't. And it's not God's job to like get me out of that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to microdose. And that takes me out of my negative mood right away. Then it just makes me more empathetic, empathetic to myself. And then I'm a lot more enjoyable to be around.
Yes.
And I don't see anything wrong with that. And then, like I said, I'm not tripping out. I can still function. I can still do my daily tasks and do all that. I just am in a better mood.
That's right. I'm more sociable. I'm more talkative.
Yeah.
The other thing that it does for me is it removes my acute chronic pain.
Yep.
So I have chronic pain in my wrist from 3 surgeries. I have chronic pain in my neck from breaking my neck, to where like a good day for me, I'm at a 4. Like when I'm feeling the best, I'm at a 4 in pain in my neck and my wrist, and I microdose, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Gone. And I'm more sociable. I'm more talkative. But like you said, like I experimented with it too to make sure like what's too much, and I have no interest in going to Mars.
Doing the nuclear dose.
I have no interest in going for a ride. I really don't. It's not what I use it for. I have zero interest in it. I'm way too much of a control freak to want to do that.
Then, that would have and that's like if you decided to do a nuclear dose, like say you were like, hey, you know what? That is where I would tell you need to be in a good setting and have somebody there that knows how to handle that and sort of talk you out of. If you're like, I'm not in control, and it's like, no, just let it do its thing.
Happen. Yeah. So, but it's been wonderful for me, and I've been experimenting a little bit with like 5 days on and then the weekend off or 2 days off, and that's where I'm trying to like kind of get it into my system, if you will. And then, like you said, like then when I haven't done it on the days I wake up and I'm going, ooh, today's one of those days, and I don't want to human. I don't want to people today.
Yeah.
Let's
But you
go
have
ahead.
to.
But you have to. So let's go ahead and microdose and move on. Let's talk about, hey, he's got a book. You can go read his book. Go buy his book, Man in the Arena.
Man in the Arena. Yeah.
Want to talk about, I don't even really want to talk about that because that goes over your past, right? That goes over what you've been through, what you went over. And again, go watch the Sean Ryan podcast that he was on.
Yeah.
Go buy the book, Man in the Arena, read it. It's a great book. But I want to talk about, again, moving forward, what you're doing now with your nonprofit, because your nonprofit is unique and needed and different than what a lot is going on, which I think is super cool. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So the Pipe Hitter Foundation, it's my wife and I and my brother all started it. My wife and I are the co-founders, and what we do is we help active duty military, law enforcement, and first responders. If they are being unjustly accused for doing their job, then we step in. We provide emergency relief aid to their families during that stressful time because I don't expect people to understand, but when the government is coming after you, the media is demonizing you, you are being treated as guilty until proven innocent, that can wreck your family life because it causes so amount of just stress. So what we do is like, hey, we'll provide emergency relief aid to the families as you guys are fighting this fight. We also raise money for your legal defense because going through what we went through, the only rights that you have are the ones that you can afford. So you need a good lawyer. So we raise money for your legal defense. We do not give you a lawyer. We don't provide lawyers. We do have a list of vetted lawyers that we trust. If you do not have it, then we're like, hey, you guys, you can pick through this. And then we'll also go advocate for you if needed. Like if that person wants to, like, hey, I want this story to be known, or if the media is putting out a certain narrative and taking out the context, then myself or my wife will go on the news or any a lot of it through social media, but we also go on certain news platforms and actually add the context. Like, this is actually what's really going on. This person did what they were trained to do. They're being demonized, and we get the American people's support behind it. Because believe it or not, there are a majority of Americans love our law enforcement, love our military, love our first responders. They are glad that you are out there doing your job, and they cannot stand it when you're being targeted. Yeah. So the American people's support is huge because that's what really pushes the impact of getting the right people involved, like Congress, or, you know, getting certain people's ear, right? Yeah. So that's how we spend the majority of our time focusing on that. We have a awesome board. We have law enforcement on the board, military. We have also advisors because a lot of the time too, the people that we're helping, it's unfortunate because they'll reach out to us almost when it's too late. They're like, "Hey, dude, I'm getting screwed," and a lot of the times they're getting screwed because they do not have great legal representation. For sure, their lawyers are churning the bill or not representing them the way they're supposed to. So we also have advisors who will talk to them like, "What is your lawyer doing?" You know, just making sure that they're being handled correctly. And then what I really like, dude, is on the back end when we get them through it. That's where I think the work, it's all work, but then I think the most pertinent work is because on the back end, because they'll get through it and, you know, they're back home with their family. But I'm like, dude, your fight is just beginning because you've been demonized. And sadly, you know, people believe the first thing that they read. So it's going to be a uphill battle from here to like get back to normalcy. Yeah. And my wife and I are able to help mentor them, especially if they are married, and just be vulnerable and be like, dude, we went through this, and this is how we were able to push forward, and these are the things that we did that helped us. And we'll also point them in the right directions for mental health help and stuff like that. So it's been really like rewarding, man. And that's where, you know, without getting into the details of everything that we went through, at the end of the day, I'm glad that happened to us. As shitty as it was, you know, God has plans for you that you would never think. And he also doesn't put anything on your plate that he knows you can't handle. So we were able to use that story, our story, and the things that we went through to help others now. And I don't think, you know, if that never happened to us, then we wouldn't have this foundation.
No, for sure. Well, and it shapes all these experiences that we experience in life, shape who we are and who we become. And like you said, had that not happened to you in your life, then this foundation wouldn't be here. And this foundation is more needed than I think a lot of people know, because there's a ton of help there's a lot of help out there for military and special operations in particular. There's not a lot of help out there for law enforcement, first responders.
No. Yeah. They seem to be forgotten about. But I'll also say there's not a lot of, like, I think special operations gets a lot of help. I don't know how many foundations are out there specifically for them. I think the conventional, like the Marines, conventional Army, they're sort of left in the dust. So it's, you know, that also I'm proud that we're helping those individuals, because a lot of times they're the ones who put in most of the work. Sure. Right.
And you were a jarhead before you were I was a squeal, right?
Yep. So that's where my
you know Cornelius Noble.
Where do I?
He was I guess in Stay Platoon with you,
dude.
He's like a stocky Indian dude.
Yes.
Like Navajo Indian. Maybe not Navajo. Cornelius, I'm sorry, bro, but that's racist, right? Yeah. I think he said I've got a comment. He he made a comment on one of the posts that you and I were on, and I got to pull it up now.
Oh, definitely. I think he might have been one of the newer guys when I left.
Oh man, let's see. Where is
I
it?
do
Where
know
is
that
it?
name.
Yeah, Cornelius Noble. Oh, I'm wondering. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, he says hi because I think he's like, yeah, dude, he was a stay guy. Man, Platz.
Yeah, I was in sniper platoon.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, that's who raised me in the military, was the Marines. My
Yeah.
first 4 years, that's...
it's not a bad way to grow up,
Nope.
you know?
Yeah, so my my oldest son is
I
in the
gotta
Marines.
find it now, man. Let's see. Where is it? Sorry. Yeah, Cornelius. No. Heck yeah, we deployed to Iraq together on the same MEU when he was a Devil Doc.
Nice. Okay, yeah, so that's during the invasion.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Anyway, you might not be able to tell, but that's him right there.
Oh, yes, he was recon. Okay,
Yeah.
yep. Now I know who exactly who he is.
Yeah. So yeah, Noel was a recon Marine, and we worked contracting together. But anyway, he says hi.
Oh, dude,
So,
you got to tell him I said what's up.
Yeah,
I'll have to
absolutely.
reach out to him as well.
That's
It's
awesome.
funny, man. Like that was so 20-something years ago.
right. But now then he reconnected because of what we what we're doing now. So it's
which
crazy.
is the beauty of
Yeah.
what we do.
Nice part about social media,
Exactly.
not the nasty part about
one of
social
the few
media.
pros about social media.
Well, dude, I mean that. I'll tell you. So I kind of shared with you some of my experience in law enforcement and me getting like kind of targeted, persecuted after a lethal force encounter I had. And generally speaking, like attorneys for police are from the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police,
So they're institutionalized.
and not the best attorneys.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate that my attorney, who was a longtime cop, became an attorney, but like dove into it. Like that's my new life, and I'm here to help these guys.
Yeah.
And I was real fortunate that I had a really good attorney who was a cop, but most of these guys don't. So
Yeah, they don't have the background, or if they're in. So it's the same problem in the military, right? The lawyers that you get are from the system, and perfect example, the one JAG that I got, and no offense to him, but he showed up and he was like, I'm not going to be able to be here to represent you as much. I think we should start talking about a plea deal. And I was like, brother, I'm facing life without parole, and I'm not going to any plea deal.
Right.
Like, I'm fighting this. But to them, they're just looking like, let's just get this done with and, get it out of the way.
Yeah,
They don't
for
want to
sure.
put in the work
No.
because once they do start putting in the work, they're going to, it's very incestuous. So that lawyer could be representing me, but he could be working for the prosecutor. And so he's like, well, I don't want to call the prosecutor out on what he's doing because that could affect my career.
it's going to affect his career. That's
Yes.
so you had Tim, right? Tim
I had Tim
Parlatore?
Parlatore. Yeah.
How'd you get connected with Tim?
Through Bernie Carrick, who was the police commissioner in New York during 9/11. At the time, I was being represented by a very corrupt organization called United American Patriots. They're half the reason we started our foundation as well. I think that United American Patriots started as a good organization, and it got corrupted because they brought lawyers on to their nonprofit. So the lawyers that were representing me also worked for the nonprofit, and what they do is, and what we found out what they do is they really have no interest in having you found innocent. They will use your face, name to raise money. Barely any of that money goes back to you. It all goes to that organization. And so we ended up, not we, my wife ended up figuring out exactly just how corrupt they were. We fired them, I would say, a month and a half before my trial, and that's when Bernie Carrick had introduced my wife to Tim Parlatore. Tim Parlatore flew out to the prison I was in. I met him for a day and was automatically like, dude, this
Guy's
is
a gorilla.
game
Guy's a
changer.
shark.
Yeah, he's amazing. I also had Mark Mukasey as one of my attorneys as well. Just a freaking another just deadly weapon to have on your legal team. And so, I mean, going into a military court with those two was like child's play, bro. Yeah. They were looking at like, dude, this is such amateur rookie bullshit that they're pulling, and they called them on every single thing. So, I mean, and all of that was all divine intervention, man. Yeah. I mean, Bernie Carrick reaching out because he didn't know us. He read an article and was like, this seems like bullshit, and then got a hold of my wife.
That's amazing.
And then from there, we formed this amazing legal team that we're still, I mean, they're family.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then Tim obviously represents everybody that we know now.
Right,
So
I was talking to Tim a little bit when the whole incident happened last year. You know, I was arrested.
Yes, with the whole Mike thing.
Yeah, so they arrested me. They long formed me because their case wasn't strong enough to come actually physically arrest me. So they wrote up their probable cause, which they manufactured. I was a cop for a long time. I've written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of probable cause affidavits, and I've approved probable cause affidavits. And so they manufactured probable cause. They shopped it around to a DA who screened it, right? A female DA who they pulled on her heartstrings and screened it. Mm-hmm. And then I got served with paperwork for a felony. I had to drive myself down to the county lockup, drive myself down there, check myself in, get fingerprints, get booking photos, get DNA test because it was a felony.
Jeez.
On my own. And, you know, I had just retired like 6 months prior, and now I've got a felony arrest pending. And I mean, obviously everything was dropped, but it's still on my record. I got to get it expunged. And like for me, like they straight up violated my civil rights. They violated my Fourth Amendment civil rights.
Oh, of course.
See hear her dreaming?
Yeah.
She's under there passed out dreaming. Woof, 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 chasing squirrels. So I was talking to Tim a little bit because I wanted to sue Provo Police Department. You know, they arrested me without probable cause. You can't just go around doing that.
No.
You know?
So, what was the advice on suing them?
So Tim, it was right. Like Tim got pretty busy with the whole Trump thing.
Yeah,
getting in, and he was also like advising, I think, for CNN and stuff. He was so busy. He was like, dude, I'm like, he pushed us off to a couple other guys. He was just too busy. So I've got a couple guys I'm talking to still because I mean, I've got sworn statements from other cops that the charging cops said, I think I'm going to go after that lapping guy too. I heard him talking all bad about me on the phone, saying I'm incompetent, so I think I'm going to arrest him too.
Nice. Yeah.
Funny how you can't arrest people because they hurt your feelings.
Yeah, because you personally don't like them.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You know, it's funny. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, dude, I think, you know, and buddies are seeing it because a buddy of mine donated to the organization today.
Dude, which was awesome, man.
Yeah, he messaged me back. He's like, dude, thanks for the video. That was amazing.
Oh, cool, man.
So, yeah, he donated today, which is cool. And that's about getting the awareness out. So, Pipe Hitters Foundation.
Pipe Hitter Foundation.
Pipe Hitter Foundation.
So you can go on pipehitterfoundation.org. On our site, we have everybody listed that we are currently representing. We have their stories and why we're representing them, and you can go ahead and click into each individual. And if you feel like you're like, dude, I want to donate to this person's case, you can do that. Or if you're like, hey, I just want to donate to the organization as a whole, that's fine too, because it gets disseminated between all the people that we are representing. I think we take about 5%, and the rest goes to,
awesome.
I think it's 5 or 10. I forget which one, but it's for admin purposes.
Yeah. I mean, things cost money. Things cost money.
That's what we pride ourselves on too. Is we are very organic. We all work remotely, and we make it work. But we really don't take that much from it.
You're not earning a $300,000 a year salary, and
no.
You know, the organization doesn't have a new Cybertruck.
Yeah,
sort of thing. It's like like it's very, very lean. Like the money goes to the people you're representing. And that's a big problem with nonprofits nowadays. Is
unfortunately
the board's making a ton of money, and it's like, well, wait a second, what are you actually using the money for?
And I think if people delved into a lot of the nonprofits that are pretty famous, they come to find out that, there's a lot of corrupt stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately. But you'll have that, which is why we do our diligence to stay above board on everything.
Right.
Because running a nonprofit, what I found too is running a nonprofit, there are so many chances out there to not be above board.
Absolutely.
Things that are offered to you, or like, hey, we want to do this, but we have to run the money through here, and we're like, nope, like we can't do anything that's going to raise suspicion, or or if you get audited, it's like you're done, dude.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, and good on you for maintaining that, towing that ethical line.
Yeah.
Like, and you've got it. We've talked about it all week so far. We've been together. It's like, be a man of principle, be transparent, be authentic.
Yes.
People are going to like you or not like you, or somewhere in between, regardless of who you are or what you are. But if you're authentic and you're you can't go wrong.
No.
You can't fail. So you got the nonprofit, and then you have your own training company.
Yeah, so that's under Gallagher Holdings. I run my own training. I'll put on courses. I'll travel, or do. We just went to Stronghold. Yep. I'll put on courses there. I have a great time doing that. I love it. I love teaching. I teach everything from advanced or basic to advanced. Yep. CQC. I was a medic, so I can teach some TCCC as well. So I do that, run the nonprofit, and then I work with just certain companies, like as you do, being ambassadors or whatever. So I'm just 3 companies that I work for, and I work for those companies because I use their products and I stand by them, and I also like the individuals that run those companies. They're people of character, and that's who I just try and associate myself with.
So you're not a corporate shill?
No, dude. And I'm always like, that's my biggest fear is being like, oh shit, I've turned into a shill or like somebody. And it is. It's one of my biggest fears is like, and not that I'm scared I'm going to do it, but it's just being looked at as like, oh, dude, this guy just pimps himself out.
Yeah.
It's just saying these things to make money. And that's not how I want to be portrayed.
No, for sure. But, and you're not. And like, I mean, now I'm getting that, but here's the fact of the matter is you still need to make a living.
Yes.
This is still a business. A business needs to make money.
Yep.
And who's to say, like, you're not making money selling people snake oil.
No.
And this is what aggravates me is like, for me, I couldn't be happier if you became a multi-millionaire, a billionaire. I couldn't be happier. Cool, you deserve it. You put the work in. And you've made that money by actually making people better or helping people make themselves better. Yes. Not selling snake oil.
Yeah.
So it's like you're a man of principle, you're a man of authenticity, and these companies that you've partnered with or that are paying you, or these customers that are paying you, you believe in the product, you believe in the people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there isn't, and I don't have an issue with that.
Right.
As long as I have all those in line, and and me and my wife are both. Anybody we work with, it has to be a reciprocal relationship. It's we're both. Everybody eats. That's our motto, right? So if we're going to work together, we're not trying to get one up on you, and then hopefully you're not trying to get one up on us.
Right.
And if we have that kind of relationship, we're both getting what we want out of it, and we're able to maintain a good, healthy relationship. We're like, cool.
Make it fair and mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
It's a simple formula.
Yeah, and
I don't know
feel
why
blessed,
guys mess it up.
And I feel blessed to even have the opportunity
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a blessing.
Well, it's awesome. We were out at the range today shooting.
Yeah.
And there's 2 kinds of people in this world, folks. There's right-handed and wrong-handed. I'm just saying.
There's right-handed, and then there's God's chosen.
Then there's gifted, right? But it's funny to me, obviously coming from 2 different industries, me never being in the military, being special operations, yet the way we shot was like virtually identical. Our tactics, what we were discussing, what we were talking about, our principles, our theories were like right on line with one another, because gunfighting's gunfighting. Tactics are tactics.
It doesn't matter
where you are,
operate, or what background you come from.
That's right.
And I loved it, dude. Like, especially, we both went back and forth of how we instruct, and that is really what I like, man, is, I think at the end of the day, we're all putting out similar products, right? It's shooting.
That's
the foundations don't change.
Right. We're not reinventing the wheel.
There are certain things, like I like I asked you, I'm like, oh, dude, you do this, and you show me some of the ways that you start off your shooting, and
vice versa.
And it's like, cool, I want to try and intake some of that into what I do. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think there's a lot of other companies out there that are like, oh, this is mine, and you're just trying to like take what I have. And I'm like, dude, literally just trying to, I'll give you the ownership. Like, hey, I got this from Greg Lappin, or I got this from GBRS, or like this isn't mine. And I think that's how it should be, man. It's like everybody grows together, and
makes us stronger as a collective.
Yes.
It makes us stronger as a collective. It does, you know, and it's like, hey, I was with Eddie Gallagher last week and he showed me this, so I'm going to impart it back to you guys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, cool. It makes me stronger. It makes me better. You know,
Yeah,
hopefully it makes you a little better, but that's where, you know, we're pushing each other again. Just the workout yesterday, or the podcast, or the shooting, or we're making jiu-jitsu. We're making each other better. You know, like I had a blast rolling with you. You know, it's like, hey, do this, move your hand here. Then coaching you with that guy Tim.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that was
Eddie.
fun.
You know, like it was like, for me, that's exciting.
Even though when I was going with you, I was like, okay, knee on belly again, sweet.
Yeah, we were having fun.
No, I know it was a good time. No, I liked it, dude.
Yeah,
I like
I
getting
know.
my ass kicked, and I'm like, cool, because that's the only time you're gonna get better.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, right. There's two things that facilitate change and growth. That's time and pressure.
Yes,
Those two things. That's how coal becomes a diamond, man. You know, time and pressure. So, dude, I'm super stoked. I know we're gonna go meet the family for
we gotta
dinner.
go
So
meet the wife
we
for
probably
dinner.
need to shower up, and you need to go spend some time with Mama, and I need to go buy her flowers. So I'm gonna go buy her flowers. But man, I truly appreciate you having me out here and like taking the time away from your day and your family life and getting to do what we did, because it's a flourishing friendship and relationship. We're going to be doing some really cool stuff together that I'm super excited to sit down and talk with you about.
yeah, brother, dude. I'm telling you, I had a blast with you these past couple of days,
appreciate
and I knew, from when we met,
Brother, I knew too. Real knows real, and energy and frequency doesn't lie.
That's
you know,
the one thing my wife says I have that's like, like this positive. She's like, you have great intuition. And, when we met the first time, I knew, I was like, this dude's a good, real dude, man. And
I got him fooled. Yes.
Yeah, right. until we'll see. Yeah.
yeah.
But no, dude, it honestly, man, I'm all about everything that you're about is like what I'm about, man.
Same.
And it was like an easy connection, dude. And you're a freaking awesome individual, man. You have great character, and that's what I appreciate the most. So I know we're gonna be doing some things in the future here, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it, man, as well, and vice versa. You know, that's why we re-engaged. That's why I came out here. You know, I'm like, I was talking to someone about you the other day, and I'm like, I'll tell you what, man. I said, I don't know Eddie that well yet, but fuck, dude, like, the few times I've talked with him and met him, we're chatting on the phone, like, this dude, you can just tell, this dude's a man of principle. Like, this dude's a salt of the earth human, you know? Like, I
appreciate you, man.
And I don't blow smoke up people's asses. If I didn't think that, I just wouldn't even be sitting here. We wouldn't have even come out here this weekend, you know? So I appreciate it, dude. I'm super stoked for some of the ideas that you and I shot around, like, legitimately.
Oh, yeah, dude. We got some good things in the works.
Be on the lookout, because it's going to be super cool. We're going to be doing some collaborative stuff between Fieldcraft and Eddie and a couple of the other organizations he's involved with. So stand by, because it's going to be rad.
Everybody eats.
That's it. Everybody
My
eats.
man.
Together we go, man.
That's right.
I appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, guys.